Miami is reeling in a lot of ways, and they remind me of us when Willie basically got canned against Miami. When he got fired because of the way that they played against Miami. Here, remember that. We walked out of that stadium, and I'm like, Willie's done. It is over. They have nothing to hang their hat on. Now, the only difference is they're in year one with their coach. You're not walking away from Cristobal, and he's getting some recruits and all of that. And they've got some injuries to fall back on and all of that. It's year one. But they are asking to have their ass beat. Miami wants you to come in and put the dagger through them. They are ready to lay down. This season has been a failure. They don't have a lot of hope to fall back on. That offensive line's not good. Their passing game is in shambles. They don't play with any degree of passion whatsoever. They just got done playing a game against Virginia where nobody cared to be there, and that includes Virginia. The whole thing was embarrassing. They want you to walk in there and kick their teeth down their throat and put them out of their misery. They want to boo those players. The 700 Miami fans that show up want to boo those players. They can't wait. If you go down there and take care of business and you pay attention to details, you dot the I, you cross the T's, and you're not so prone to mistakes of execution, especially in the red zone or getting lined up and wasting timeouts and doing dumbass things that we do on the regular in situational football. If you don't do those things, if you go down there and you're buttoned up and you're locked in, you're going to boat race Miami. You're going to boat race Miami. If you do what you did against Georgia Tech and blow opportunities early and give that team any reason to believe whatsoever in a rivalry game, then you deserve what you get, which will be a war, a four-quarter game with all of us sitting around thinking about what should have been had we not fumbled on the one, had we not gotten cute inside the 15, had we not, all that stuff. And you could just see it. Sometimes that visual is a little bit clearer than others. And this one feels like it's pretty easy to diagnose. Go down, businesslike, buttoned up, intense, focused, certainly not sloppy, and take care of business. Miami's ready to lose.
In that sense, the Tech game is good. You know, it's good for you for this week of practice, right? Because of the way you can motivate off of that film. Guys are happy because they're coming off of a win, but you make so many process errors, even on defense. There were some blown coverages that we're not taking advantage of. So every phase has something to improve on big time this week. So it's a coach's dream in a sense.
It is, and coaches love it. All coaches do. Every coach I've ever talked to or been around certainly loves all that stuff. They have an opportunity to be able to say, see what you did here. Here's what you didn't do here. Hey, I know we gained 27 yards in this play. That's partly because they suck and they're not trying hard. You certainly didn't help out because you missed your block completely. And, oh, by the way, what direction are you going here? I saw there were things in this game where you're like, that's not part of that play, but all right. So, yes, in that sense, yes, he can read them the riot act. He can say, guys, I'm hesitant to flip out about a win this lopsided, but we all know, guys, based on the stuff we worked so hard to correct heading into this game, that you left a lot on the field. I mean, when was the last time Florida State played a half where the score is 24-3 and they've got a chance? They should be up 40-something to nothing.
Correct.
I mean, Georgia Tech shouldn't have a point based on their yards or lack thereof, plays or lack thereof.
Yeah, they had more yards or more points than yards when they kicked the field goal.
It's crazy.
3-2.
Right. So you could have walked into that halftime and said, reasonably so, this should be okay. Let's 30, 32, 35 to nothing. I think I went going back. Fair. I think that's what I marked on my sheet. It's 35 to nothing.
Yes.
So, okay. Kids aren't perfect. People make mistakes. Things happen. Other guys are on scholarship. Ball takes funny bounces. However you want to say it. You give them a little flack, but man, there's a lot to circle. There's a lot to redline. There's a lot to say, the premise is solid here, but we got to tighten up the writing. I like where you're going with this, but this is lazy and sloppy. We got to do better. I didn't expect to have to redline so many of these elements on your first draft. This is a bit much. So I will see if Florida State can get that buttoned up. Sometimes, admittedly, it is the competition. Sometimes you can't escape a sleepy nooner against the team begging to lay down and doesn't want to be there. Sometimes your focus wanes when you see their focus is non-existent. Sometimes you need a Miami across from you to tighten it up, to ratchet it up. And I know fans always like to say, oh, well, it shouldn't be that way. You only get 12 of these. You got to be focused all 12. That's not the way it works. You've watched enough college football to know that even the best teams have afternoons where you're wondering, what is this? What is going on here? Where's the focus? Where's the intensity? Where's the attention to detail? That's true, too. Georgia's had several games that way this year. You know, you watch them at the start of the second half against Florida. Out of nowhere, that's a game because you're half-stepping. Give up a couple big plays.
Bulldog Falcons are saying 28-3 again? 28-3 again? But then they finished the game.
They did. Yeah. They did. It went down, executed, very importantly, 2 important drives and said, that's it. That's all. Thanks for playing. Good on you for fighting. Yeah, I really did wrestle with this Saturday night and Sunday morning, and again this morning going over it. I really did. I could feel me getting angry watching that game and breaking down details and frame by framing that thing in the rewatch and going, what is he doing? That is the wrong, and there's, if you do that, Jordan misses some throws. That's 4 games in a row where that's been a trend, but he's also made some great plays and some big. I do think it's interesting, and I'll just posit this. I think that the argument amongst fans, or the frustration that fans feel right now with Florida State, primarily has to do with the red zone. Okay? Well, on that note, I'm going to say 2 things. First of all, congratulations, Ryan Fitzgerald. We've seemed to have figured some things out. We're kicking the football with what for? With confidence, with belief that it's going to go through the uprights. There's real form there. There is authority. The sound of the ball coming off his foot, everything seems resolved, knock on wood. Not saying he won't miss some kicks down the line, saying it won't be for the same reasons. He's no longer void of that confidence. You were watching that kid, you're like, oh, no, that kid is lost. And I hate seeing that because I've been there on a tee box, and that's the worst feeling in the world. It's awful. You're like, oh, gosh, I may hit a car here. I got 0 chance. It's the worst feeling, and I don't have a camera on me. So, I felt for him during that stretch, but it looks like whatever he had to do, maybe reverting back to his old technique, whatever it was, seems to be the case. That seems to have been working good. So that's a red zone issue you may have resolved. Like, not having to call plays without the option of kicking a field goal is nice. Like, in the past, the last few games, you've come into the red zone knowing it's 4-down territory. I can't roll that kid out here. And that changes everything about your play calling. It's not ideal. It puts undue pressure on everybody involved. So I like to think that that's resolved. And the only thing I want to point out, the other thing that may solve some of these red zone issues, at least in my opinion, is I do believe in certain games, this not being one of them this last week, this past Saturday against Georgia Tech, that they make decisions going in. We are not going to run Jordan Travis. We're just not going to run him. We're not going to call runs for him. We're going to tell him to try to avoid running if at all possible. We're going to tell him to throw it away if he has to, but let's not run. Well, if you want to change the math in the red zone, you run your quarterback. There's other things you could do, but you run your quarterback. He didn't run at all in the red zone. Now, I would dare say on the road against Miami, if you're trying to cash it in and you don't want to have to run jet sweeps and flea flickers in the red zone, then you better run your quarterback, because your tight ends aren't great anyhow. So some of the other things you can do are mitigated. So you got to run your quarterback. And I think they will against Miami, just like I think that, we knew they would run him against Clemson. They knew they'd run him in certain situations. They've tried to mitigate some of this. A lot of these games, I don't think they're always tempted to run him. I would run him this Saturday if I needed to in the red zone, certainly.
The first touchdown against Clemson.
Right.
You ran the quarterback.
Well, and that's called. It's beautiful.
Yes.
It's well done. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. They ran the quarterback. I think you can do that here, and I think they choose certain games to do it or not. That's one I would do it. Obviously, you're on the road against Miami. Take the crowd out of it.
It's a huge week. It's a big week.
It's a big week, but I think they're going to go play well. I think they got what the doctor ordered. They got back in the win column, and they were sloppy. They have a lot to critique, a lot to fix, a lot to focus on, and You got an arch rival. You got an arch rival whom you loathe. They hate you. You hate them. There's no guesswork here. We don't have to tiptoe around it. Screw Miami. Screw them eternally. If you can beat their ass senseless, you need to do it. They're reeling. Knock them out. Don't let them get to the later rounds. Knock them out. We're trying to win recruiting wars. Mike, this here's your chance. Go down there and beat that team like a drum. They got nothing. They look like bums. It's Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.